Это арена галактика на Positive Hack Days. Уважаемые участники,
Welcome to the Galactic Hall at Positive Hack Days. Dear participants, there's an opportunity for you to ask a question
и ответить на них после выступления.
to the speaker by using this QR code. The speakers will select the most interesting questions and will give answers to them after their presentations. We are now going to have a discussion. Can we automate the infosec team or when AI kicks us to the curb? Sergey Danilov, security head Rosreestr. Dmitry Goydenko, Vladimir Bengin, product development director, Salado, Dmitry Mikhail
Промсвязьбанк. Денис Гайденко,
Senior Vice President Director of Information Security, Rosreestr. Denis Goydenko, Head of Investigations and Threat Management at Positive Technologies. The session is moderated by Mikhail Styugin, Head of Information Security Automation at Positive Technologies.
Коллеги, всем привет.
Colleagues, hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about a very exciting subject, how the AI impacts the effectiveness and efficiency of infosec processes and how it can affect the labor market in information security. I recently ran across an exciting book by Kai Fu. I used to be head of Google in China and then became top manager at Microsoft and Apple. And this book, he showed us how our not too far away future can look with AI becoming ubiquitous. And of course, he didn't bypass the topic of AI replacing people in many professions, causing mass unemployment. In his picture, a mass corporation of people who lost their jobs, who are trying to migrate to other areas. And he's not alone in this kind of apocalyptic forecast. We have lots of experts in technology cooperation who are who are suggesting that it'll happen even earlier than that, not in 2041, but in 2030 or 2035. But if we look at the point where we are now, then when we analyze different cases of using AI in cybersecurity, it looks like they are few and far between. And sometimes result in actually growing headcounts rather than releasing specialists. And we decided to discuss this, and we'll start with analysis of where we are today. We have three speakers who are playing the role of CISO. They do cybersecurity in their own companies. And one speaker is a bit of a puzzle. He'll join us later, so let's start.
So we
are working with the digital bank, and I think it's not unique just for the Russian market. I think it would be quite unique for the global market too. If somebody would replace all people in cybersecurity, I think Tinkoff Bank would be the first to do so. Dmitry, what do you think? Well, we actually strive to do so. Well, jokes aside, we have a very strong AI team. We have a very strong ML team. The only thing which I might not like, well, we had guys who went to Black Hat. I didn't go there, but the AI topic and ML topic basically on every presentation. If you have nothing to talk about ML or AI, it's not a presentation. And this becomes basically a bullshit. This vicious cycle just goes on, and I think we are at the top of this hype of artificial intelligence, and we try to shove it, everything in all this internet, all this AI. we just want to push AI agenda everywhere, but we only speaking about this. We don't really do this. And my guys who went there, they obviously did not like the presentations at all. It was absolutely useless and unreasonable. Why would you use AI here? It's just done. You don't need computer there. And the problem is there. Do we use AI? Yes, we do. And we actually try to replace everything with AI and ML. It might seem so, but we are actually trying to make iterative steps, and we are trying to understand. Well, it might sound like we want to replace everybody, but this is not true. We have about 3 to 350 information security processes, and some of them are developed, not replaced, but developed with the help of AI. Let me give you a few examples. We have 3 sandboxes on the perimeter, and we try to use artificial intelligence and look for phishing emails, and we are quite successful. Obviously, we need to improve, but still we are pretty good. There are some bad cases when we tried to use DNS traffic to teach AI for potential anomalies, and it doesn't work. When you do not know, when you don't specify what kind of anomalies you need to find, then it's really hard to fine-tune. Because when you just upload any data and you ask it to find any anomalies, well, it finds some anomalies, but it might not find the anomalies you need. It basically just white noise. It doesn't work like this. And this is indicative that the separation of teams, we have a big ML team, about 800, 900 people who work with business ML. We use their platform, but there is an outer intervention from ML team. It doesn't really work. You need your internal team. For product owners, for people who work with the information security products, we need those people to understand how ML works, how to fine-tune it, what kind of data to use, where it should be uploaded, where the results should be uploaded of ML. And the team, the operational team, should be obviously fine-tuned too. And only in this context it works. Because we had different approaches, we tried to pour to our greatest ML experts, and we said, here's the SOC, this kind of stuff you need to do. And they do great stuff, but otherwise they cannot do so. Well, it happens great, but it happens like with the lack of direction, let's say. And in terms of development, I would say that this might be a joke that ML would substitute all the security people. This is not true. It's more about structuring the processes of information security. Let me think of a good example here. Application security. Let's take this. Just the previous presentation and many presentations were connected to finding, to the way how we detect different vulnerabilities and how we present those vulnerabilities, like developers have to do this. This paradigm doesn't really work, and we wanted to exit this paradigm. We suffered a lot. It's really hard to express this without using swearing words, because you always had to nag developers who had to change their code so that it will have no vulnerabilities. And that's why we use ML, just to fix vulnerabilities after developers. We provide a pull request that can be merged, and this code can be deployed with the fixed vulnerability. And it works much better. And we already had this kind of experience when we work with different repositories on GitHub. We are investigating, we are looking for vulnerabilities. We can use ML to understand if it was a vulnerability or not. We understand the context for this particular development. We can ask the correct question. We can explain the context, why this is a vulnerability, what could be the consequences. And if we have this kind of experience, and if the machine has the experience, if it's fine-tuned on specific vulnerabilities, I think we took Microsoft or Google machine and basically fine-tuned it for our needs. And then we allow our developers to push a button and to correct the code. And I think this is good. But to replace people, well, we've never done this before. We tried, let's say, to fix the vulnerabilities themselves, and it doesn't really work. Dmitry, thank you. And here's a quick question, maybe a little bit provocative. We need to understand if ML helps or not. Imagine that ML disappears. For example, it is banned by the government. We had this kind of initiatives a certain time ago. How cybersecurity would change in your company without ML? Well, we are losing part of really good processes. So, for example, there are people who download stuff from the internet, different software and so on, and they install it. And previously, this software was checked by the first line manually, then it was double-checked by the second line, it was overseen by information security person, lots of different regulations and rules. And we tried to use ChatGPT to ask the right question and to ask if this is the good software or bad software. And ChatGPT does better job compared to 10 experts from this first line, second line, and overseer. Obviously, you can go back and double check it manually. Is this a vulnerability? Well, in some sense, yes. There could be frauds, there could be scams. Will somebody try to scam a model just to upload some kind of malware in a company? Well, this is highly unlikely. These kind of simple processes can be automated using ML. They work really well. And obviously, you have to understand the limits. There are many questions which we answer. We have basically a torrent of information. We have different analysts, business analysts, we have to analyze those changes, if it's dangerous, if it's not, in terms of architecture. And many questions are asked in terms of information security. We obviously ask them to do so. We have a separate channel, dedicated channel where you can go and ask your question. And for example, you can go there and say, I want to upload data and I want to pass it. And then analysts would respond. Should they do this if it's dangerous or not? And about 30% is answered by machine learning. They just study and they understand the context. If it's not a critical point, then you can use ML. Or another point, you probably have some kind of automation systems where you work on architecture, and we will work with our ML so that it works with Jira. It would find the most important tasks, it would highlight them, and provide some potential correcting measures. I think this is very good. Obviously, you can do this manually, 200 million tasks, but it's a little bit more complicated compared to what ML can do 24/7. And it's actually a pretty good process. We had 2 students and we did it over a summer. There was a problem in source composite analysis. To create a SBOM file with dependency and then use it to analyze potential software with kind of version, if it's vulnerable or not, or maybe remove it from repositories. We have this kind of process that we don't do much in runtime. Usually we do it in repositories, and then we guarantee that we have only the expected things coming to runtime. But you have to analyze repository really well. If it's a Docker container, we need to have a SBOM, which is a file that has a list of dependencies with its versions. And over summer, we created a tool that's very effective for binary files that are executable for this SBOM. And we actually use this SBOM. It goes, it learns and learns. It pre-analyzes our containers. And then from those containers, it understands that there are certain dependencies, but obviously you need a specific process for this. So what happens next? Where we have dependencies, the developers get a notification that you have some problems here, you should recompile your Docker container. And if you don't do it in a week, then runtime won't work. And everybody is accustomed to this. Now there is an ML tool going around looking for potential vulnerabilities and components, then it retires them and just takes them out of the repository. I think it's great. This is what we do.
Да, спасибо, Дмитрий. Очень
Thank you,
интересно.
Dmitry. That's a great example you just shared. I would ask Sergey too, but I would reformulate a little bit. Dmitry mentioned a lot of interesting cases, very narrow tasks that ML is very good at. But my question is, if we take this small
Ну, то есть, условно, весь
tasks and we try to analyze and maybe automate a bigger process. Maybe you can automate vulnerability measurement process, or maybe incident response, or maybe incident detection. If you can automate them at a strategic level, not tactical level, if you have a fully automated process and the system would scan itself, would decide what to scan, it would prioritize vulnerabilities, it would verify and do it all by itself, a complete process. And the same applies to Security Operations Center. The system collects all the notification, goes through all the alerts, reacts itself, and creates all the scenarios and works. Well,
это уже следующий шаг. Это следующий шаг. Но вопрос в том...
this is the next step. Yes, this is the next step when business can use this button and just get money. Okay, so how far away are we from this autopilot, complete autopilot? Oh, at any rate, this is not too far. And first of all, we have to streamline the processes. First of all, obviously, we are working with artificial intelligence in terms of very simple stories like the so-called monkey job, where you need to go through false positives, through antivirus notification. Obviously, it's a very simple job. Next, we go into orchestration. We already have a project on working on IT and information security processes. We even call it like this for our infrastructure, but at any rate, we will be working in this direction. The same applies to automation that happened a few hundred years ago. Many people tried to resist the progress, but it doesn't happen. People said that people would took to the street, but nobody did that. The life goes faster, and if you do not use artificial intelligence or some kind of automation, you won't have resources, you won't have enough people, and you won't be just fast enough. We already face the fact that there are attacks that use artificial intelligence. Not too many people, not just lots of hackers. So sometimes it happens, but we already have this AI attacks. Well, Sergey basically avoided the question. Well, regarding the macro processes, can we fully automate the macro process at the strategic level, or we can only assist at the tactical level? Well, I say we will reach that point, but not just right now. Well, I would say that there are no strategic processes. You can automate. Well, can we really automate business? It's not clear. What are we talking about? Maybe we can just ask ChatGPT, build me a business. ChatGPT, build me a SOC. ChatGPT, earn me money. Well, it's not very clear. How would you do that? In many cases, it's very unique, and you try to. Well, with my SOC experience, different organizations have different security operations centers. They are absolutely different. Well, obviously, SOC or SOC is not the goal in its is not the end goal. You need SOC to reach the end goal. I can see that Dmitry joined our discussion, and I asked representatives from two banks, because Promsvest is a state bank, and they have digital processes, and they are affected by many regulations, and because of that, they might be different from Tinkoff Bank. Dmitry, maybe you can share your experience where you are in terms of using AI and ML in terms of cybersecurity, and where do you see yourself in the next few years? What's the current strategy? Well, first of all, thank you. I'm terribly sorry for being late. I was trying to get here as soon as possible. Unfortunately, it's not like it happens in Tinkoff. We are a very specific bank, and we have our own mission, but we do have regulations and we have to follow certain rules, so many rules. Do I understand correctly that we are consider AI everything generative, networks, ML? Well, basically everything. Well, I would like to say that we have a lot, but unfortunately not. Our business made a lot of many steps forward. We have chats, we have chatbots, we have Katyusha is an artificial intelligence assistant that works with ChatGPT. So they have some progress in that direction, and the whole bank also moves in that direction when we're talking about data analysis, big data analysis. But when we are talking about cybersecurity, then we are a little bit skeptical, I would say. We decide certain measures, what can be done with the help of artificial intelligence. We're looking for potential steps. Maybe it can be used in first line, maybe it can be used in anti-fraud. Well, I will not name the products, but any box solution has some kind of option for artificial intelligence. Nobody saw it, nobody uses it, but it's there. And when we would work, we don't really use for it, we don't really wait for it. We create our own model, we train it. Can I say a few words? Yes. We worked with Cyber, and there was a pretty good discussion about the future hacker, the future scammer, and there was an interesting idea. All the available GPT models, they update their classifiers through interaction with us, through using our information. And somebody said, why isn't this applicable for us, for information security? Oh, because we are paranoid. If we build something, we have to do it ourselves. We have a little bit here, bit there, and we have our own island, and those islands are not connected. We are in this sea of information security, so we can put many hypotheses, but it doesn't really work. We build our own security. I remember when I had this leap of faith. I'm also paranoid, but if we cannot stop this, it's better to lead. And we saw the need from IT, from business, to use ChatGPT and other AI, and we had information security people who went to CTO and to IT people, and I said, so we have this need, just take your team, you have developers, we need to create a gate, and this gate would allow us to have this controlled and comfortable. And this is an illusion that if we prohibit it, we just reject it. Well, you cannot really do this. They do it over Telegram with snippets of codes. They will find a way. So you cannot really reject the progress. The idea maybe is to make it more comfortable and so that you can control it. It can be a part of a product, a part of a service, some kind of measures. AI, ML can be used by developers. I think this is the right direction, and it worked better. They created their own gateway, they created their own controllers on that gate, and it started to work pretty good. Obviously, we do not use ChatGPT per se, we have our own models, but the integration is much more closer with us and IT, and I think it works well. Dmitry, but it's not a silver bullet. I'm talking about the general idea. Why don't we have a single model, a single way, maybe documentation, single network? And the reason probably is that some of us are some of us are paranoid. Maybe somebody does have to lead, and maybe we have to trust it. Who knows?
Okay, спасибо. Денис.
Okay, thank you. Denis, I can see that you want to say a few words. So my question to you. Just recently, I saw an interesting report by Yandex Cloud 2023, and they say that more than 50% of all CISOs, Chief Information Security Officers, use AI or ML, but it's interesting how they use it. They provide some details and not just known cases like biometry, which is used, they use ML for it, and it's an understandable case. But they provide some other cases, or maybe incident response. They use CM, they use ML in CUR, they have EBM systems and other abbreviations. So you, as an expert in incident response, what's your opinion? Are you afraid that you'll be replaced by AI? No, no, there is no fear. And we should separate and distinguish between these areas. There is some mathematical statistics, and there is deep learning networks, neural networks, this black box, unpredictable one. So there is a big difference between them, and some of them you can understand, like statistics, which is used in SOC to limit false negatives and false positives, where you have deterministic data where you understand what's going on and when the data is constant. And probably there are some potential technologies to implement it. Yes, this could change in the future. And I want to be a realist here. There are people who support ML, they say that ML will be everywhere, but it's not the reality. We are scaling up. Now the new version is ChatGPT 4.0, and I asked ChatGPT 3.5 how to get access to this, and 3.5 doesn't understand that new version is available. So this is what you should, this is enough to know about this. Well, I have access to 4.0. Oh, you have everything. That's great. We need to train the system all the time, and hackers come up with new mechanisms, and there is a gray area of unknown. Neural networks cannot predict what kind of attack will be performed by hacker. Well, we cannot know what the next 0 day will be. And obviously people use this hype to create those GPT like Elon Musk's and other people from the Western countries. Basically, this is just a sieve that information goes through, and then it can be categorized into different clusters for people to work with. We tried to use it, and we need accuracy, but we don't really see accuracy in ChatGPT, at least. I try to write a code, and I try to ask ChatGPT how to write this code, and it provides me some small function, and I ask you to use the same function in a different context, but it does not pass all the arguments and parameters, and I double ask ChatGPT why you didn't use all the parameters, and then it apologizes and corrects itself, and you can spend an hour or 2 hours just talking to the ChatGPT, and you're never sure if it's correct or not. And that's why we need accuracy. We need to be sure that something really happened, that maybe an incident is there, maybe we need to respond to an incident, maybe block something. So this accuracy is not provided by any GPT, ChatGPT or any GPT. Next, if those GPT networks would be scaled up, and they were able to highlight some interesting things, then we would have exaflops, we will have big buildings full of server racks. Well, maybe 1 or 2 companies can do so, and then they will share it with the public. But who will be ready to give data to this big GPT? It's all about confidentiality. This question is not solved. And finally, about statistics and statistical analysis using ML, the classical approach, it works it's great and many people actually use it. But how do we go to this macro approach, to the strategic approach? I do not really see a solution. How usually this happens? Hackers use new tool like ngrok, and now everybody starts using ngrok. And then vendors started to create a way to protect from us. But then they start to use different utility, different tool, local to map, instead of ngrok. So how do you detect all this? And this is a very simple example, but there are 0 days that will come later. How do you forecast those? It's impossible. It's just easier to collect a lot of useful information from different hosts, and that's all. The last case we had was 50,000 hosts. We've collected the information from them. We've highlighted using some statistics, and in a few days we understand what we see, where we have different incidents. I think this is what we can do. So there are still some cases for ML use, right? We will give some chance for ML and artificial intelligence, not for ML, but for simple statistics, yes. User behavior, or what do you call it? When there is a user that works during holidays, and maybe you can use the statistics, and you can use this information for certain actions during those holidays, during idle time, maybe during the night, what they opened, why they did this, some kind of user from secretary, from the account office. Maybe for some reason they went to the IT department. Those simple things, they work, this is highlighted, and then it's validated by a person. I would like to protect ML a little bit. I'm not an ML evangelist, and I agree that it's been heavily pushed everywhere. But what you are talking about is very similar to where we had a few problems already. We were unable to do it. So, for example, we wanted to have behavioral analysis. We've collected all the processes of potential problems. We've uploaded it to our supercomputers that can find potential anomalies. They have lots of different processes that show anomalies, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. And the same applies to, well, maybe you had a bad model, maybe you had a small data set, maybe you have a small sample. Well, no, actually the problem is that it doesn't work at all. If you just try to upload snippets of code to ChatGPT and tell me where do you have vulnerabilities and how to fix it, it will give you some random answers. Well, it will give you some vulnerabilities, but not all. But how it should work is that when we do not separate this, we do not isolate it. This is what we call ML paratroopers. We have ML and then we just flew it over and we expect that ML will return some great result. And then it returns some random answers. This is what we did multiple times. And that's why we need a single product team. So today is May 25th, and until the end of the month, all my leads had to undergo ML training. Half of them already did that, the other half are currently studying them, because when ML products, well, product leads are not involved in ML, they cannot just use it. We already have ML engineers, they are ready to work with data, but even if they are not in the context how to react, how to respond, what hackers look like, they still try to look for potential anomalies. It doesn't work, and then we become sad. But what will be the correct approach? So, for example, we took a part of OPSEC. We took someone else's model from Google to look for vulnerabilities. We took all our repositories, we took all the previously found vulnerabilities, and we started to fine-tune our model specifically for our vulnerabilities. Specifically for our vulnerabilities written by our developers in our infrastructure and repositories and how they were changed. And it was trained pretty well. It provided really good results after it was fine-tuned using our GitHub. So if you transfer, it won't work if you just if you just graft it, it won't work because it's not trained on your vulnerabilities, it's trained on my vulnerabilities and my developers. If you train it yourself, it actually works. And the same applies to incidents. I'm not sure if it works for incident response in your case. I think ML wouldn't work. But for my situation, if we have half of the first line use my infrastructure with my types of connections, with my types of hardware and software, with all the working stations, and if you fine-tune the model specifically for our context, then we might have something. But to do so, we need the head of the security operations center. They need to understand what they do, why they do this, how structured data that they feed for the input data to machine, how it's delineated, how it's marked, how it's stored, and only then it can work. When we have this global context, it's a very global structure where it can work. If you just fine-tune some abstract model and ask it to find some potential discrepancies, well, it finds some of them, but it's impossible to do correctly if you do not do it yourself. So I think it's a very tailored solution. It should be custom and you should fine-tune your model, but the general approach doesn't really work. At least those solutions which are sold on the market, unfortunately, dear vendors, but where we have ML, it doesn't really work and we have no idea why is there, what kind of result we get there. It's unclear because the general idea is that it's pretty hard to have the general model. I haven't seen this before.
A great answer. We've actually approached the next question. Vladimir, as a representative of a vendor, this universal fine-tuning, how possible is it? An international conference, JSEC,
И ML-ка там была не то чтобы в каждом втором решении,
a month ago, when all international infosec vendors were showcasing the solution, and they had ML in almost every solution. Sometimes you were wondering what it was doing there, but it was there. So, as a vendor representatives, how do you look at this ML? Can you share your visionary view? Okay, my turn now. So what else did I promise to say? Hey, Luzhniki, hello.
Вообще, абсолютно со всеми хотел согласиться.
Generally, I would like to agree with every one of you. Thank you
Просто огнище. ML
very much. You don't need to repeat for cases that you have. It's just great. ML is not going to replace. I don't agree that everybody is going to be out in the streets. It's just we're going to have more exciting jobs, and tedious work will be entrusted to these guys. I mean, ML. Globally looking, how the vendor looks at it, how it can be done. There are two main tracks. Sometimes
поиспользовать и для каких-то новых историй ты как-то раньше по одному
you have some new story, new picture. In the past, you were detecting incidents and doing things like that, and now you've got a new approach. For instance, the category manager. You need to categorize websites. So what the site is doing is it advertising drugs or sells weapons. For some reason you need to
сотрудников, которые будут что-то тыкать, вам не надо
modern models will do a great job there. You don't need 100 employees to do that. You don't need to run statistic analysis because these large language models summarize the text that they automatically pass. And this is really a new technology. It offers an absolutely new push to the old approaches. So this is one. This is one. And generally, there's a huge number of other things, of similar ideas, how you can reassemble something old and well-known with these new players. And the second block is much closer to the customers, users. You know what? Every year for the past 10 years, we've been saying we don't have experts, we don't have expertise, we need to train everyone. we need to have more infosec people. If we take frontline people, Denis, for instance, what
Ему этот ML не нужен, ну потому что он сам может и код написать, и
I see
проследовать,
Denis's
и
words.
точно
Denis is a
нужно
good
не
expert.
пропустит.
He doesn't need
Когда мы
ML
берем среднего
because he
заказчика,
can
у
write
которого
code
не очень
himself
много сил,
and
не очень много
will not
людей,
miss out on
и еще
anything. But
желательно еще
when
3 студентов
we
взять
take a
на
customer
какие-то
who
ставки,
doesn't have
и
a lot of
представьте, он
workforce, not
открывает
many
какой-нибудь,
people,
ну я не знаю,
and
чтобы
imagine
простой инцидент. Окей, он открывает СИЕМ,
they
и ты его не
hire some
обучал
students.
полгода, что там в
So
событии
they
винды
open this
16,
thing, and you
24,
didn't
25, где
spend half a year
авторизация, где
teaching them
неуспешная
about,
авторизация винды, а этот
Windows
человек
events
просто
where
делает
authentication
запрос
was
на
done successfully.
русском языке. Он говорит, а покажи мне, пожалуйста, всех пользователей,
It's just
кто
this person
логинились в
runs a
выходные
query
дни.
in
И
Russian,
ему,
and he says,
соответственно,
show me, please, all
что
users
сегодняшние
who
модели
logged in
умеют
during the
делать,
weekend.
так это перекладывать это в более понятный
And
код для
what
системы, который как раз,
present-day
опять
models
же,
can
это
do,
универсальные
they
знания,
can
потому что
translate
здесь
this
тот же
into the
чат GPT
code
и
that
любой
the
другой
system can
GPT
understand.
практически никогда не ошибается, когда вы у него спрашиваете, какие типы событий
No chat GPT
за
or
что
any
отвечает
GPT
и какой тип
model
событий
will
отвечает за
make any
авторизацию, за
errors
неуспешную
giving
авторизацию, то
answers to
выдадет
this kind of
список,
questions.
соответственно,
They
ответов.
will
Может
give
ли
you
это
a
сделать
list
эксперт? Да, может. Но это история, которая может
of
дать
answers.
абсолютно всем удобный доступ
Can an
ну,
expert
к
do that? Yes,
конечному
they can.
результату.
But this
Я
is
этим
a
много раз
story that
пользовался.
can offer
Для меня, ну, то есть я
absolutely
вообще,
anyone
честно говоря, фанат
a
скорее,
friendly access
потому
to the
что в
end
какой-то
result.
момент у меня образовался
I
очень большой
use
набор,
this a lot
не
of
знаю,
time.
каких-то там
I'm really a
данных,
fan.
бигдаты, вот этого всего, и
At
мне надо
some
было
point,
это
I
как-то
had a
укрутить.
huge set
И
of
чаще
data, big
всего у меня
data. I
было
need to
большое
do
число
something about
различных
that.
ну,
And more often than
помощников,
not,
помогаторов,
I had a lot
инженеров,
of
программистов, еще кого-то, аналитиков, кому я выдавал
assistants,
задачу, говорю,
helpers,
слушай, мне надо вот
engineers,
так, мне надо вот
analysts
так, между
whom I
просто у
was
меня
setting
нету на это
tasks, and I said,
времени,
I need
на то, чтобы покрутить данные в какую-то нужную сторону.
this, I need
Так
that. I
я
just
уже
don't
больше
have
года
time
вообще
to
этим
do
не
it myself.
пользуюсь, потому что у меня есть
To
какой-нибудь кликхаус, к нему
slice and dice data and
прикручена
stuff. So I
обычная
haven't been
какая-то
using it
графана,
for more than
и
a year.
можно,
I just have some
соответственно,
ClickHouse
запрос
with
GPT,
Grafana
причем в любой
and
моделью моей базы данных,
just
и я
pushing
просто ему пишу,
a
слушай, мне
query
нужно
into
построить модель с
GPT with
выборкой по
any model
неделю,
database. I say,
топ-10
look, I
всех
need to
остальных
build a
записать
model
в один инфотейк,
on a
график по
weekly
неделям
basis
со стопроцентной
with
загрузкой
all
шкалой.
those
И он мне
who
выдает такой прям
were
запрос,
working
знаете,
doing
страницы
this,
2, наверное, исходит
and they
запрос
will
по
give
графане,
me
который с первого раза отрабатывает. И написал бы я сам? Ну да,
like
написал
a
бы. Ну,
Grafana,
часов за 6, наверное.
two
Но он выдает это
sheets
за
of
10.
Grafana
И русским
that
языком у него спросил, он мне
you know,
по-русски ответил. Ну, ответил мне странно,
do
я
that.
просто должен
Could I
французским
have written
делать.
it myself?
Но
Yes,
неважно.
but maybe
И это
I'll
офигенно круто.
spend half a
Ну, то есть это
day. But
автоматизирует
it gives me an
нашу
answer in
работу. Я
10
получаю
minutes, and
результат
that's
вот
really
так
cool.
вот,
That
гораздо
automates our
дешевле,
work. I get the
проще, и
results
не
at the
занимаю
click of my
лишних,
fingers,
соответственно,
much
вакансий.
simpler,
Ребята могут пойти
and
заняться более
don't,
интересными делами, а не помогать мне в аналитике
get my
таблиц.
people busy.
Поэтому
They do
однозначно да, и есть вот эти
more
вот
exciting
две
things
основные
than helping me
вещи,
with
которые, соответственно, мы
spreadsheet
можем использовать
analysis.
и
And
в рамках выявления, в рамках внутренних историй, в
analytics.
рамках
Yes, there are
каких-то
two main
новых
things where we can
техник
use
по
AI.
выявлению чего-либо.
Detection,
Вот. А с другой
internal
стороны,
processes,
упрощение работы,
new
потому что у нас
techniques
очень
to
экспертная
detect,
история. Ну, то есть
identify
ИТшники в
anything,
целом,
and also, on
к
the other hand,
сожалению, должны быть очень экспертны. Они
simplifying
дофига всего должны знать, чтобы эффективно с
the
этим бороться. Мы можем прям
processing
снижать этот градус
so
для
as to free
большинства
up
задач
the
по
time of
информационной безопасности.
experts. Experts have a lot of things
Можно
to
я
do, have a lot
дополню?
of
Мне
things in
очень
their hands.
понравилось то, что ты сказал.
Can I
И
add something? I
хочется,
liked very
чтобы это
much
было
what you
максимально
said,
полезно и сделать на этом
and
акцент
I
все-таки.
would
Ну, то
like to
есть,
make it
как будто бы, правда, мы ожидаем, что
as useful as
придет
possible to
какой-то
focus on this.
сеньор,
It looks like indeed we're expecting some senior
чемпион, сеньор,
senior ML champion will come and just they go through all commands and find do some magic and then everything happens on itself.
реально на
But
опыте, правда,
in
вот,
real
наверное,
life experience,
если бы
yeah, you're right.
кому-то был интересен мой совет,
If
я бы сказал,
somebody
что
was interested in my
если
advice,
кто занимается
I
развитием
would say
информационной
that those who
безопасности, не
assist
поленитесь, просто вот
CISO and those
садитесь, не
who
знаю, в Мехмат
to development of
и
information
наймите
security,
себе пару джунов,
don't be
математиков,
lazy.
просто
Go
вот,
to
это
the
недорого для
mechanics and
организации. Если
mathematical
же хотите
department
ставки,
at
ну, то есть
Moscow
два
State,
джуна
or
математика
hire a couple of
на какие-то
junior
определенные задачи,
mathematicians,
если вы их погрузите в контекст, за
put them
полгода вам
on
сгенерируют
certain
результаты
tasks.
больше,
If you
чем
get them deep in the
многие
context, they will
команды, которые
generate more
делают это
results
годами.
in
И
6
вот
months
этот
than
факт
some teams
почему-то
that have
как
been
бы
doing it
вроде
for many
очевиден,
years.
но никто так
And
не
this fact,
делает. И я так не делал на самом деле. Я вот, например, там внутренний антифрод я
it
пытался
seems
развивать,
to be obvious, but
искал
somehow nobody
экспертов на
does that.
рынке,
And
там
I didn't do it
полгода,
myself. For
год
instance,
искал. Вот
I
нашел
tried
там
to develop internal anti-fraud. I was looking for experts. I spent half a year. And so we had a big problem looking for experts. Everybody knows how to run some systems, but I don't need that. And as a result, we first hired two graduate mathematicians right from the university, from the school bench. They just knew mathematics. And then all our empirical models that we had spent a couple of years building with two leads. These two junior mathematicians built better models, showing better statistical results to identify outliers in the behavior. Then we had tried to build empirically for a long time. And then we followed this way. We have about eight mathematicians in anti-fraud. They're showing outstanding results. Building model, not trying to generate some empirical rules. The external anti-fraud I mentioned when they're stealing money from a granny. It's been done a long time ago, but there are thousands of parameters analyzed for a customer. And the rules that have been developed, they have been generated and changed through machine learning for many years. Yes, so the guys have given up on doing it manually. So if it is possible for you, or if it's you who is the decision maker on hiring, then just hire a couple of mathematicians, junior mathematicians, and you'll be surprised by the result. A question to Vladimir in continuation of the discussion. So when you're building some solutions that involve ML, and maybe not even ML, let's say you just include some automation that replaces expert work on the customer side one way or the other. Doesn't the responsibility or accountability of the vendor grow, for the result? So the more integrated automation approach that we're taking is becoming the higher the responsibility. There's no dilemma, why? It's a fact. The more the vendor is providing, the higher the responsibility is.
Он отвечает только за то, что оно будет просто собирать. Если он говорит, я буду собирать...
A good thing collecting events, it will be responsible for collecting. If they say it's going to collect and detect,
будешь гораздо более эффективно выявлять инциденты информационной безопасности.
They'll be responsible and accountable about detecting and collecting. And if they say, if you're going to be, with my help, you're going to be more effective in providing information security, then yes, you'll be accountable for the end results. So the higher level service you are offering the customer. Well, firstly, of course, it allows you getting more money from them, but secondly, the accountability is higher. And at the end of the day, you were going to keep vendors accountable as just like they do in driverless cars. I start encountering project when we come and we start telling what kind of new technology solutions we are going to provide. And then the customer says, look, it's really very cool. Why don't we then change the rules of purchasing? I won't be buying ready products, but I'll be buying the result. And you will write the accountability right in the contract. And you have to understand that those players who are prepared for that, saying, yes, make us accountable for the outcomes, and we'll be working as experts in cybersec, responsible for the end result. Of course, there's an extra zero that's put on the right of the number. And this looks like a very adult approach. But I'm going to be responsible. I'm going to pay out if they lose. I know a few examples of contracts. We don't have contracts like that. But yeah, you need to add zeros at the back. Let me add a bit, because I'm also a vendor.
Отлично, да, отлично. Надо все-таки разделить понятия шеринг ответственности и шеринг риска.
Okay,
То есть ответственность
great.
предполагает, что если что-то
One
происходит
needs
плохое,
to
то как заказчик,
separate
так и вендор, они несут некие негативные
responsibility
последствия каждый
sharing and
свою
risk
пользу.
sharing.
То есть
You
мы,
need to
допустим,
understand
там
that if
большая
something bad
компания на
happens,
бирже, и
both
случился
parties,
неприятный инцидент, везде в СМИ у нас упала капитализация, нам прям
somehow
плохо.
pay for
Хотя
that. For
вам,
instance,
заказчику, наверное,
a
все равно,
large
потому что у вас
customer
все общее.
ran into an
А шеринг
incident,
риска предполагает, наверное, то, что мы
so we
имеем
fail,
большое
our
финансовое плечо
capitalization
и
goes
прям
down, and it's bad
компенсируем
for
вам
us.
ваш риск.
And
Да,
whereas
как правило, конечно, вендор это не делает, потому что такого огромного плеча
in risk sharing,
нету. Это
it's
должен
about
быть либо
direct
банк, либо
accountability.
страховая компания.
And
Но
vendors
это
don't
не
usually do that.
противоречит
We don't
исходной
have a lot
модели,
of
да,
such
потому
a
что
high
сейчас
leverage
вы как
to allow us to do
вендор
that.
в некоторых
But that
наших таких как раз
doesn't
интегральные
contradict
продукты
the
мы
initial
хотим
model, because
встраивать услуги
as a
страховой компании,
vendor,
потому
we
что в
want
страховая
to
премия там
build
настолько
in the
минимизируется
services
за
of
счет того, что качество
insurance
процессов
companies.
действительно очень высокое,
In
и
fact,
страховая
the
компания это
insurance
понимает, и она
premium
сильно прям опускает страховую премию до
runs at the minimum
такой степени,
level
что мы ее
because the
можем прям
insurance company
безболезненно
understands
вставить
that the
без
quality
дописывания
of
нуля
service is quite
справа
high.
в те
And
решения,
so
которые мы
this
строим.
allowed us,
Но это
without
пока,
adding an
конечно, в
extra
планах. Да, то
zero
есть
to
это
the
модель,
right
которую мы сейчас прорабатываем и готовы будем, возможно, скоро нести в рынок.
of the contract price number becoming the model viable, and will probably be bringing this model to market. So you mentioned driverless cars. I always have this question when it comes to machine learning. We, as investigators and responders, we work with the human factor. Well, somebody has missed out on something, starting with the inventory, running all the way to implementation, and so on and so forth. Somebody missed something. People do that. And maybe, just like with
автопилот на дороге, наверное, это опасно. А если все
cars, the logic goes,
все роботизированы, да, то есть все автопилоты,
if
наверное, это
everybody's
более-менее
automated
безопасно.
and robotized, as everybody drives driverless, then perhaps it becomes safer and more secure. Does it make sense to implement machine learning at all levels and stages of infosec?
Постоянно люди ошибаются.
It's a question to whom? Well, I don't know. I only know that people
то она сделает неправильный вывод.
Там же вот
always make mistakes. Machine learning, it gets information, the input, and if you don't provide it with enough information, it will give you the wrong answer. There's also a second part, and I don't know whether it has already been discussed. It would be curious to take a look. It's only just that standards on data contamination, model contamination that start appearing, adding backdoors. There are quite simple attacks that can bring about a real disaster. They're quite simple. There was an old joke. They asked the passwords when the Chinese were enumerating. They added Kim Chen-ir 2 million times, and I think that will work with models. It can be reconvinced that this is the right password. This NIST standard, Databricks, I forget, it was Bricks Data or Databricks, 50 threats, and threat modeling regarding models. Machine learning. But even if you add all your code to ChatGPT, load all your code to ChatGPT, then somebody can ask ChatGPT how to attack this organization. But you still add it. We only load code snippets that are tested via algorithm. No, we don't load. Firstly, the gateway cuts out what we don't want to load and what we can, so that it couldn't be connectable. Connectable over a long period of time, long enough, so that it ceases to be of interest to us. If somebody would like to reassemble all our code, so throughout the period that the code is not changing, they'll hardly be able to do that, and it's our gateway that keeps on that. But if you load it over ChatGPT, perhaps it's going to be bad. Okay, I'm not going to explain it in more detail.
короче, жалко, что мы не затронули. Вот эта тема интересная, и это, наверное, тема отдельной
No,
дискуссии.
it's a pity we haven't touched upon the subject. It's quite an interesting subject and probably a subject for a separate discussion, how to model the model, how to protect from the models that have been attacked. I've even had discussions with guys who are pen testing models, who may try to contaminate them or to try and cheat them. And in fact, it's quite easy to cheat ChatGPT. The restrictions, it's a language model. It's a generative model. They have some restrictions. Don't harm, don't talk about bombs, don't talk
правильно спрашивать, все она рассказывает. Ну, то есть это вообще легко обходится.
about all sorts of things.
Которая, типа, взрослая.
But if you find the right way to formulate your answers, it can actually be bypassed.
Первый раз такой
And actually, these threats go back many years. First time they asked me a question like that in 2019. I was speaking in front of an audience because in that time there was a research about characters. So nothing has changed and nobody got protected. So it's been more than 6 years since it emerged. And the second story about these threats is not related with algorithms, it's about data. All these concepts require a huge amount of data that have a lot of external APIs, which brings about humongous growth in threats. Yes, I agree. And the third aspect that you've touched upon, I talk to guys who do ML professionally. And I say, look, when are we starting to cheat biometrics? And said, it's already there. So there's a data with data leaks. You can ask it to generate all sorts of data for you, and it'll collect your database for calling. And this kind of things. And you can actually forge, counterfeit an identity. It's a big problem. It's a next level problem. And so when it happens, when it does happen, perhaps it's that time that the real discussion will start. But it will happen, I'm sure. Okay, for sure. We've only got 6 minutes. And I would like to ask you the last question so that each of you should give a brief answer to them from your own perspective. How will the infosec profession changed? What new you will be requiring of these people? 10 years down the road. I can say, look, actually, the profession of a security person will change in 5 to 10 minutes rather than 5 to 10 people. I always say that you are doing infrastructure security, go for DevSecOps, because most likely the profession of an engineer will just not be needed. So
все в эту сторону идет. То есть в харденинг все уходит на уровень выше, на уровень прикладной, там DevSecOps в эту сторону.
But at DevSecOps, it will still be there. MLSecOps is getting there. And I think that a cool security person would be the one, an engineer, a security engineer, I think, bringing together the skills of SOC and application security skills, ML engineering skills. This is kind of a dream persona. But the borders get fuzzy. And if at past we were using the word classic for those who were writing papers, and now we apply this word to those who implement CVEs. So security should be by default. If it's not part of the box, if it's not the inherent trait of any product and platform, all external security would be just
Прям очень плохо. И на моем опыте там самые защищенные платформы, которые у нас есть, извините, там нет
So the most protected platforms we have, sorry, there are no security tools, not a single one. They're standing in the way. They're standing in the way in the normal operation of the platform. And it's not required. The best hardening is to take the admins out, offer them an ephemeral infrastructure. There was a presentation at the RSA conference where a guy was talking that the CIA, so integrity, availability and confidentiality principle is dead.
Дистрибутивность, иммутабельность и эфемерность.
CIA die, whereas die was for distribution, immutable and ephemeral. So these attributes are becoming more important for systems.
Дай другим возможность тоже высказаться.
So, okay, let other people speak as well. I just wanted to give you an example. Okay, all right. So we've got lots of examples.
В любом случае, это будет уход, наверное, в направлении ML, разработки, поддержу Дмитрия абсолютно.
In any event, it'll be probably about going towards ML, just as Dmitry said, processes that are simple, that are at the level of infrastructure is a way that is dying out. We're all following this route because everyone understands that there's no point, paying for a whole company of Marines to protect your doors. New technologies evoke new threats. Where there's a new threat, there won't work for us. Great, great.
Нет, на самом деле я вот абсолютно полностью с Димой согласен. Он
even shorter, I can do it even shorter.
чуть-чуть назад, вот
Actually, I fully agree with Dmitry. He said the right things. Roll back a bit, jailbreaks. You remember, we had paper-based security, then we got part of IT, then some other part of IT, then IT will go away, it will be infosec, and the standard where CISO and CIO is on top of CIO. CISO is more important. But the most important thing is that this new area
значит, должны появиться такие защитники. А что они должны делать?
is coming out of a linguistic hacker. If these hackers arrive, then what do they need to do? They need to be able to speak English and Russian perfectly, to do testing, piloting. It's very important because these hackers arrive who know Russian very well and just use this language to ask ChatGPT to do what they need, and it'll do it for them. So I think some new professions will come up in this area.
Что делать молодым, как опускаться, вот
смотреть,
это исключительно горячие
what is to be done by the young ones, where to look. It's all about enthusiasm. It's important to keep an eye on trends, but with this, every time you hook into something, we've now touched upon AI, you need to go deep. You shouldn't be a fan like let's push this video AI like just in the RSA conference.
Погружайтесь в детали, но при этом следите за трендами, чтобы каждые 3 года глазами. Это прям универсальный успех. Там
So you need to just have, fiery eyes, enthusiasm, and keep running forward. Thank you. Summing up, the question that was mentioned as the chat, as the title of the section, and asked ChatGPT what it came back to me. AI can considerably improve your capability, information security, helping in the detection of attacks, threats, and
новых методов защиты и принятие стратегических решений.
Play a key part in creating strategy, developing new ways of protection. AI can be a useful tool, but human expertise and experience is still indispensable to fight with the continuously changing threats. That's what ChatGPT answered to the question, which served as the title for this session. And here we have approached 6 highly paid specialists have been generating about the same
что тут можно сказать? То есть,
Так опустил.
в целом,
The ChatGPT for absolutely free, generated in a split second. So what else can we say?
они никогда не были точно предсказаны.
No technology revolution has ever been predicted. It can always be just a black swan that can fly to us tomorrow, turning our lives up, from down up and up to down. So that's it. So thank you for the discussion, colleagues.
Далее поговорим о том, как злоумышленники могут атаковать привычные системы с
Looking forward, we're going to discuss how wrongdoers can attack industrial systems using quantum technology and how to keep yourself protected from these attacks. It'll be presented by Ekaterina Snegiryova, chief analyst at Positive Technologies, and Anton Gulia from the QA.